Hello MGTOW, Sam Chandler here. This video will be a response to Sandman's video, the new class of MGTOW that came out 2 or 3 days ago. And actually it doesn't even address so much of that video as it does the comment section below that video. I just want to say off the bat that this doesn't really change what I'm going to say. It doesn't really change what I feel about MGTOW. I am MGTOW, and I'm happy to have found this circle of people that I can identify with. It doesn't change anything about my being a fan of great MGTOW posts on YouTube. Really, it's just personal opinion, some observations over the last year or so of how we talk about married men coming into MGTOW. And before I get started, just for the sake of clear argument, I'll call MGTOW a group, and that's with the understanding that I know a lot of other people feel it's maybe a stronger term or maybe has a slightly different meaning than I'm going to use. I mean no disrespect to that. I just want to use a word that is general enough to make some basic points. Okay, in my view, there's 3 discrepancies I can see about people within the group saying no to married men in MGTOW. The first is that some men out there feel the idea of MGTOW will be diluted somehow. Essentially, married men who live with gynocentrism, or their wives, would expose MGTOW to traditionalist ideas that would weaken the group. Along with this rationale is Barbarossa's thought that if we didn't have this one stipulation, barring married people, then everyone would join, and if everyone was joining, then the phenomena would be meaningless. As much as I enjoy the work of Barbarossa and go to his site often, I can't agree on this particular point. The reason I can't support keeping married men at arm's length from MGTOW is because we've already made some concessions to some very high-profile women. Diana Davidson calls herself MGTOW. The Honey Badgers are strong contributors to the community about MGTOW and MRA issues. Karen Strawn is one of the most respected authorities on men's issues out there and contributes often to MGTOW forums and comment sections. And so by the above standards, these ladies' contributions also give rise to gynocentric, foolishness, thin the overall message of MGTOW and somehow make it more, or somehow make it less viable? I don't know. But the second discrepancy I have about marriage in MGTOW is I think MGTOW gets wrong that it has, at this time anyways, has no universal definition. So depending on who you're speaking to, it's a movement or a philosophy or a phenomenon with one overarching component that MGTOW is allowed to be many things. Right now, with such a amorphous designation, the closest thing we have to a definition is very subjective. It's something along the lines of a male individualist revolution, using revolution in the smaller term there. So really, anyone who wants to say they're MGTOW is MGTOW. And really, I can't see that there's a goddamn thing anybody can say about it. My third point is about the name MGTOW. It's a misnomer. Single, divorced, autonomous working men are already the least attached to society by any sociological views anyways. They're already not conforming to the marriage ritual and or having families. As it turns out, families right now anyways are the building blocks of society, not individuals. In business terms, families are more of what we'd call a going concern, able to grow and reproduce and move forward. Individuals are static. They're in stasis. The only men right now who could claim to be making a change by going their own way are these married men, who are the actual foundations of society and whose pulling away would actually create dissonance. The only way the term MGTOW could be viable is to allow the ones who actually model the action of walking away from tradition, and that is those married men. if you can see it that way, or if you can look at it that way, then single men are all essentially that single men are already on the periphery of society, and the imagery of walking away is kind of moot. And excluding married men from MGTOW makes the term well just as confusing as the word feminism, which is a singularly sexed word that claims to be for equality for both sexes, but it is not. As we already know, it ostracizes men and emphasizes women. If a guy is demoralized or shocked into the red pill, into taking the red pill through an epiphany, how is that less somehow than a guy who has maybe never had any obligations or expenses or oaths or anything beyond himself? And I'm not judging anybody on that. I'm just saying that walking away from something, you have to have had something to walk away from. In a nutshell, to me, these married men who are kind of knocking on the door of MGTOW are more like prisoners of war, captured by the enemy, but with hearts and minds filled with resistance. I guess the next thing I'm going to talk about from the video are a couple of things from inside the video itself. Sandman and Walter were talking about fatherhood, and Sandman made a couple of comments, and I'll throw some in myself. Well, if you believe in evolution, you take that most of our basic programming, survival, reproduction, mating, mirrors other creatures in nature. With our closest ancestors, the apes, it's the alpha only who mates. Really, the others get none. You go farther back into evolution, and there's pairs who share parenting. But what is not seen in love or in nature is mating for love. Parents don't stay together in nature out of love, and I don't think people do either. I think it's natural to fall out of love. Love, I think, is as the feminists say, a human social construct. We don't see rhinos throwing on patterned tracksuits and going antiquing. It's possible love is something that happens to make us mate, but I feel it really declines into friendship or something like it after the actual mating and raising the children is through. So love is a temporary thing. Parenting is not. Once there's offspring, it doesn't just change the relationship between parents, but it also changes the life priorities of the individual sexes. The love relationship becomes secondary overall, and the parenting reflex takes over. So regarding Walt's problem in the video, it makes perfect sense. He's been parenting for several years under the false pretenses, thinking parenting is an extension of the love he has for his wife. And she's been promoting that relationship really just for her own benefit. And it doesn't fucking matter, because to continue to serve when your livelihood or your sanity or maybe even your life is at stake, well, that takes something called honor. And women don't have that. Walter has honor, and he equates with love for the woman he mated with, and for the kids that they raised together. Honor is not a female trait, but I think something similar. Women have something similar in same-sex preference, but honor encompasses both sexes. Females' same-sex preference doesn't. And in behind pushing both these kind of social drives is gynocentrism, the biological program that ensures breeding is successful and that the female is kept safe through gestation and birth and until the offspring are grown enough to fend for themselves. If there's the will from both parents to stay together, they will. And they might even call it love, but I think even the most romantic of married persons would say that their love is much different now than it was when they first got together to mate. Since we know 70% of divorces are created by females and that females have the upper hand in court, that also means that the wife has control of the man's personal vow of honor from father to children. It goes deeper than money. And here again, MGTOW falls short on evaluation in that many men will reach out to a fella who's struggling with jobs or struggling with his sex, or girlfriends, or money, but can't seem to understand that paternity is as much a biological drive as the female maternity is. It's something that men can't help. They're involved. And therefore, I think that we needlessly throw men under the bus sometimes just for being good fathers. We in the MGTOW community talk about financial burden as the main drawback for leading your family, but the social stigma of abandoning kids is there, and the personal price of falling down on a solemn oath is there, the oath that they have to their children, and to support them. And when we talk about suicide in divorced men, I think that probably very little of the personal distress is about money. I think a lot of it has to do with honor. Summing up the father and marriage part of all this, there's number one, there's already aspects of MGTOW community that thin the message. There's ladies, we love their work, and they are contributing gynocentric values to our group strictly because they're women. Also, the meaning of MGTOW as a concept is loose, and everybody seems to have their own slightly different version of the definition. The term men going their own way applies to men that have obligations better than it does to single unaffiliated men who don't. Finally, not all men stay with their wives because they're under some spell or because they're bitched into submission. Most will stay for their kids, even if the relationship's over. I don't think there's a lot of choice there. Men of honor stay with their families, even if the love for the wife is totally gone. Now, I'll comment on some other stuff that was in the video as well. MGTOW, as it stands, is a series of web personalities and followers who approach gynocentrism from a lot of different angles. Some are angry, some are dismissive, some are pretty intellectual or tactical. None of these perspectives are wrong because, for the most part, we share the same adversaries and promote the same issues. But these varied views on things lend themselves to varied definitions of the term MGTOW. And that draws lines between us, allies, even though we're all under the same umbrella. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying that there's discrepancies, I believe, in excluding huge numbers of brothers on a technicality while having an unclear name, even less clear terms of reference, along with supporting women who contribute to the community regularly. We open up the group to being condemned, I think, sometimes as being superfluous. And it promotes, that promotes infighting. Arguments based on little more than semantics or petty bias. It blurs what I think is the only viable agenda out there for men and boys right now, to have peace of mind and self-respect in this freak fest of a society we have. Let's see, there's some pretty polarizing comments that were made in Sandman's discussion area for this new class of MGTOW video. Reading through the comments, I noticed arguments from men, pushing men aside, shaming them, and even maligning them about age, marriage, and the idea of support and what that support might mean and who it extends to. And of course, the ever-popular definition of what is MGTOW is a big piece of conversation too. I even read a couple of times something along the lines of, it's okay to support and hang out in the group, but you can't actually be MGTOW if you're married. Which, really, if you notice, is exactly what radfems say to their manginas. You can be a supporter, but you're not a woman, so you can't be a real feminist. That was really something to read in the comments section. In the same comments section, there were guys throwing men under the bus wholesale, based on a bias against baby boomers. So I guess men over the age of 52, 53 now, just crapping on baby boomers really has nothing to do with MGTOW at all, and I think kind of emphasizes my previous point about rifts in the group. I called that bias because if that group of guys who was kind of talking down to baby boomers would have been born in 1952, by the language they used in the comments section, they would have been the blaring voices against the status quo, shouting to stop gynocentrism and railing against destroying the earth and the decimation of our resources. and being enraged at the making of male wage slaves, of being used up and tossed away by society, and sacrificing their own lives to show all the people in 1952 how wasteful and thoughtful and wrong they were to try to achieve more than what their fathers had. And I just don't think that they would have done that. And I doubt the fuck out of that. They would have skipped along happily, being the first generation after 2 world wars who could eat meat on any kind of regular basis. I believe they would have taken advantage of all the boomers had and washed it down with a beer just like the boomers did. Well, there's one thing I do disagree with Sandman in the video. Once again, that's the new class of MGTOW, is what he says about Walter's daughters. Parents these days have very little sway in the motivations of kids anymore. Their social groups and media, the media that they watch, has a lot more effect. So I don't think Walter's wife would be trying to turn his daughters against him. She, like he, is probably desperately trying to have any girl, any daughter he has, treat him with any kind of respect. Really, it would be their friends or some piece of media that they would spin any lies to these kids, or maybe some common core information that they might have learned in schools. If there's any rift between the parents and children, that's where it would be, and not because of any kind of parenting skills or because the mother was trying to set the daughters against the husband. Gynocentrism is taught in schools, and one of the downfalls is that in girls is that they're taught autonomy right away, which really distances kids from their parents. The reason is similar to the younger people who were trashing baby boomers in the comments section we were just talking about. Parents are blamed for what these young people see as a crappy world being left to them. It's a stigma a lot of parents are having to deal with now. Mums and daughters relationships, they sure aren't what they used to be. Thank goodness, well, my son and I have a pretty good relationship, though I know that my ex and her and my daughter are really having problems, and I think we'll continue to. Well, I guess I'm summing it up with that. Thanks very much. Sam Chandler here, thinking MGTOW, thinking for MGTOW, and I hope to talk to you soon. Have a great day.